Hi, I'm Dr. Adam Millman, and I wanted to share with everyone a few lessons that we learned a couple days ago in synagogue. The weekly portion of the Bible that we read, this one from the 13th chapter of the book of Numbers, also called Bamidbar. The name of the story, this particular section in Hebrew is called Parsha Shlach, and it has to deal with the story of the spies, which is a very famous story. And whether you have a very strong faith or you don't have a strong faith in Judaism or Christianity, there's a message that comes across in the verses that I think would be very useful today as it was 3,300 years ago when the story took place. This particular section that we read, the 13th chapter of Numbers, is particularly important to my wife and I because we always wanted to have a son and name him Caleb, or Kalev as you say in Hebrew, because of what he stood for and his ability to see the best in bad situations. And then 8 years ago, we were blessed to have a son on the day that we actually read this particular section in our synagogue and synagogues around the world. So the day we read it was the day that he happened to be born. It's only read once a year, and he was born on the day that we read it. So we saw some magic there as well. So the story of the spies is a very famous story. Jewish people are about ready to begin the conquest of the Eretz Canaan, the land of Israel. And after prophecy that this is the land that they were supposed to have, occurring over the last few hundred years, they've been waiting for this moment. And the question is, how did we arrive at this point where we are? Let me take you back about a year. Jewish people, the Bnei Israel, as you say in Hebrew, the children of Israel, had just crossed the Sea of Reeds, and they sang a song. And the song dealt with what had just occurred, how they crossed the sea, and now they were about to go forth into the promised land and begin their journey and finish their journey from slavery through freedom, and now eventually beginning to form a nation in the land that they were promised. They sang a song about how the nations were now afraid, terrified of them because of what they had all heard had occurred. The most powerful nation in the world at the time was the land of Egypt. They saw its economy brought to its knees by a series of miracles and plagues. And then the Jewish people escape. And as they arrive at the sea, about ready to cross it, it looks like there's no way out. There's no way across the sea. There's no way back except to Egypt and the oncoming army of Pharaoh, the most powerful army in the world at the time, with its horse-drawn chariots that would roll down through the desert and it would sound like thunder. And it was the fear of all of the nations, this army. And then what happens? We all know the story or saw the movie. The army of Pharaoh is destroyed in the sea, and the Jewish people are able to cross. So after surviving slavery and now watching the nation of Egypt brought to its knees and now the army destroyed, the Jewish people cross the sea. Soon thereafter, they receive the laws from Mount Sinai. Moses comes down with the tablets, as everyone knows, and we received instructions of how to live. Later on, we defeat the army of Amalek. Food falls from the sky. There's a well that travels with us for water. And there's clouds that protect us from the sun. There's a pillar of fire to guide us. And now we're about ready to come across into the land. And the final step is to send spies into the land and to see if the land is conquerable. And what happens? 10 spies come back, and these were leaders of the tribes, educated men and leaders. And they said the land is not possible to be conquered. It can't be done. Now, why? How could that possibly be? After they were told just 1 year prior that the people in the land that they were now about ready to conquer were afraid of them. And they saw all of the miracles, and they knew that the Almighty was with them, and they knew that the land they were going to was able to be conquered. And the nation of Pharaoh was destroyed. The Egyptian army was destroyed. Food falling from the sky, a pillar of cloud and fire while protecting them. They had built the tabernacle, and they were traveling, and this was the final step. So how could this possibly happen? Well, I think part of the answer comes through the verses that we read, where it says that the spies thought that they saw that there were giants in the land, and they saw themselves, this is the spy speaking, they saw themselves as grasshoppers. They said, we were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and therefore we were as grasshoppers in their eyes, in the eyes of the giants. Now, maybe that's true. Maybe the giants did see them as spies. Maybe the giants did see them as grasshoppers, but maybe they didn't. But once you have in your mind what other people think of you, it's going to prevent you from taking the next step in your success, making that next move, applying for the job, trying to get the promotion. Because once you believe that people see you in a certain way, then you're not going to act, and you're not going to succeed. Unfortunately, this is the case where people say that externally there are forces out to get them, there are forces working against them, there are people that look at them in this way, and it prevents them from acting. And then they say that they initially felt they were like grasshoppers in their eyes, and therefore we were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and therefore we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. So they saw themselves as grasshoppers. Now, you're going to perform exactly how you see yourself. If you see yourself as a failure, then you will not pursue success. If you see yourself as unintelligent, there are going to be things that you don't pursue. It's going to affect what you study, where you go to school, what type of job you want, what type of spouse that you might pursue, because of how you see yourself. And how you see yourself affects how you act. And how you see yourself affecting how you act is also going to affect how other people see you. Now, they may see you in this way because this is what you think and it may be real, or they may see yourself in a certain way because of how you see yourself, how you hold yourself, and how you act. They will develop an opinion about you. And it may or may not be true, but how you see yourself is going to determine everything. Dr. Joyce Brothers once said that you cannot consistently perform in a way that is inconsistent with how you see yourself. You cannot consistently perform in a way that's inconsistent with how you see yourself. So if you see yourself as a failure, then you're not going to pursue success, and you're not going to take on endeavors that are consistent with a successful person. And Zig Ziglar once said that the way you see your future determines your thinking today. And your thinking today determines your performance today. And your performance today has a strong bearing of what your future is going to be. How you see your future is so important, and it starts with how you see yourself. One of my favorite books was written in 1903. It was by James Allen, called As a Man Thinketh. And this verse, of course, comes from the 23rd chapter of the book of Proverbs, the 7th verse, also called the book of Mishlei in Hebrew. And in the title of the book is As a Man Thinketh. And it comes from this verse that says, As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. How you see yourself in your heart, in your mind, will determine your whole reality around you. What you pursue as a career, what you pursue as far as education, a spouse, friends, where you live, the kind of clothes you wear, everything. It will create your reality, starting with how you see yourself. How you see yourself is the foundation. That is your foundation of what you will pursue in life and what type of life you will create. And you can change how you see yourself. You can change it, starting with yourself, how you view yourself. The spies saw themselves as grasshoppers in their eyes, and they thought the giants saw them as grasshoppers. And the giants may not have seen them as grasshoppers, but for sure when they spies saw themselves as grasshoppers, they were going to perform just as grasshoppers. In a lowly way, they would not have the ability to see future success, even though they had success up until this point and promises of success. They still saw themselves with an inability to perform in a successful way. So let us not make the same mistakes of the spies, whether it's 3,300 years ago or today. The consequence of the spies' inability to see, to think and wonder and see the future based on how they see themselves in past promises caused them to dwell in the desert for another 40 years until the negative thinkers all died out and were replaced with positive thinkers, people that thought that it was possible. So this should also tell you something about who you surround yourself with, because the negative thinkers will have an effect on the positive thinkers. And if you surround yourself with people that are pessimistic, that don't believe in success, don't believe that success is possible for them, it's not possible, everything is against them, the economy and taxes, inflation, the employer, the schools, the churches, the synagogues, everything is working against them. This will affect how you think about success as well. If you associate with people who believe in success and believe in themselves, this will have an impact on you. So James Allen later goes on in one of the chapters called Visions and Ideals. He says that dreamers are the saviors of the world, and that later on he says that we should dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. So I think the problem with the spies was their inability to believe in themselves and their future, and also their inability to wonder. Their inability to wonder and dream and think about success for them, success for the nation. And the consequence was 40 years in the desert. So let us not make the same mistake of the spies, lest we may find ourselves in our own emotional, physical, intellectual, economic desert because of our inability to believe in ourselves and believe in our possibilities. Thank you. Have a great day.